Consumer Price Index, and blue is college tuition and fees. Right? Where else could somebody convince you to buy something like that? So let's say there's still, it doesn't make any sense financially, but there's something really pure about going to college. Well, we definitely value critical thinking and independent thinking as far as the skill set needed for this world. So the Associated Press did a study recently on sophomores in college, and they found by the end of their sophomore year, 45% of them showed no improvement on critical thinking, complex reading, or writing by the end of their second year of college. And the other thing is, employers are becoming numb to this traditional kind of resume, diploma type of application. And the Sudbury Valley kids at Sudbury Valley School, they actually say that if a child decides to go to college, that they all the time do, and most of the time it's their first choice. And they actually have more luck getting into the more competitive schools because their resumes are different. When you graduate from a Sudbury Valley School, there's no diploma. There's a portfolio of work that you've done there. And it looks different. And the Sudbury Valley School actually sends this form letter to the colleges and says, this is why we don't give diplomas, and this is why we do this. And so it's actually catching the eye of these schools. And so they're bringing these kids in for interviews, and they're getting in. And I think that's actually the wave of the future, is a portfolio of your knowledge and your work, not really the diploma, the SAT score. And here's the thing. Are we trying to meet the future with what we've done in the past? And I think we are. But change is scary, right? It threatens us. It makes us feel ill-prepared for the future. It devalues our expertise. It's exhausting to try to keep up. But the problem is, the biggest problem is, we see our children as possibly our most valuable assets. And what if you believe everything I've said today? What if kids can teach themselves? What if we're wrong? What if it doesn't work? I'll tell you though, what scares me the most is the violation of liberty is actually scarier than if we're wrong with this whole education proposition. I'll have to read this to you because it's kind of small. These things really kind of churned my stomach. It was at the end of, when I told you about this Indian study about the hole-in-the-wall experiment, I watched this video and there were the comments at the bottom. And these things really deeply disturb me. These are the comments people put. But if kids can learn anything they want, I think they will learn things that will show us, sadly, what some kids really are. All in all, a great idea, but this must be strictly regulated by the right people. Here's another one. But how will our children ever evolve to scientists or mathematicians by learning things by themselves? What I'm trying to say here is that on a basic level, yes, they can learn things on their own. What about thermodynamics or rocket science? The problem is that there are many basics that not all children are interested in learning. It's very easy to teach a child about something he likes. But do we really want to have generations of adults who only have learned the things that interest them as children and nothing else? And finally, you don't learn math by doing what you want. You learn it by people forcing you to make hundreds of perhaps boring exercises. That sounds a lot like coercion to me. So, what I'm basically here to talk to you about, I'm going to sum it up, and why I'm talking to you guys is what if the right thing to do is, in the traditional model, the right thing, what I mean is sending a kid to go to college, to get a diploma, to get a job, to have money, and have a white picket fence. What if the traditional model is actually the right way to do that? What does it matter at the cost of liberty? What if we've done it against the child's free will? How can we possibly send a child on this path, even if it's what gets them to be what we call successful, if they haven't chosen it, and then we teach the virtues of liberty and free will? I'm not sure it's worth the cost, and I actually can't really reconcile that. I don't know how liberty and compulsory education live on the same plane. So what next? So what do I do about that? Well, believe it or not, there are some other places other than South Carolina that are a little bit more progressive in this country. And so this model is not news to them, places on the West Coast and the Northeast and everywhere. And they're starting to engage in this new model of education. And so what I'm trying to do is start the first liberty-minded school for ages 5 to 18 in Charleston, called the Founders School, and I'm hoping to launch it in 2014. With the same non-curriculum, children running the school, setting the rules, adults facilitating it. It'd be the first what's considered a free school in South Carolina, and the children be able to do as they please in a very safe environment. So I expect to get a lot of interesting feedback on that. Really come from that type of this is not a community that's very accepting of these type of things, but I actually truly think this is the only true liberty-friendly way to have children be exposed. So that's my plan. So you guys can kind of watch either in a participatory way or from a side and see how that goes. And then I'll just end with this quote. This is one of my favorite quotes. To trust children, we must first learn to trust ourselves. And most of us were taught as children that we could not be trusted.